Hi, True Avatars, and welcome to your weekly queer video game podcast. This is episode 42, and I am your host, Zoe Wild. I am a transgender and bisexual woman, and my pronouns are she, her. The first half of this episode, it's just me again, and I've got a bunch of headlines for you. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered has a surprising update. PlayStation held a state of play for Ghost of Yotei. There's some follow-up news on the Stop Killing Games petition. Nintendo is ending yet another discount program, and Gayming Mag held their annual Gaming Awards. Plus, so much more. And then in the second half, I've got something really special for you, True Avatars. I'm going to be interviewing Tanat Boozayaangool, developer of the upcoming game Building Relationships. We've talked about building relationships before on the podcast. It's the N64 PS1 style dating sim with some light platforming elements. And in this game, you play as a house looking to date houses and other buildings. It's cute, it's wacky, it's weird, and it's charming. Tanat was so gracious to come on the podcast and discuss building relationships, so please stay tuned for the second half of this episode. The conversation is an absolute delight. So, I'm going to jump into the news, True Avatars, but first I do have something to ask of you all. If you like this podcast, please leave a comment, rating, or review on your preferred podcast platform. Spotify has ratings and comments, while Apple has reviews. Engagement like comments, ratings, and reviews helps to grow the podcast, and a growing podcast means a happy podcast host who is forever happy and fulfilled that you enjoy listening to her show, which creates an infinite feedback loop of more podcast episodes and more growth and more happiness. So please go leave a comment, rating, or review. Also, please follow True Avatars, a queer video game podcast on social media. There are accounts on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube at True Avatars. There's also a TikTok account. You're welcome to follow the TikTok account, and I do have something in the works for possibly this fall for content on there. I can't say too much more about that in case it doesn't end up happening. Mainly, I'm trying to do some tests to get a video podcast going, but the tests have been going okay so far with the platform I'm looking into. But anyway, you can also find the podcast on the official website, trueavatarspodcast.com, no spaces. And of course, I said I wouldn't tell you anything about what I'm trying to do in case it doesn't happen, but I told you anyway. Also, remember, this is a weekly queer video game podcast, so check in every week. I am bringing you news, interviews, and updated discussions that are relevant to queer gamers, so you have a safe space to check in on the world of gaming from a 2S LGBTQIA+ lens. Alright, let's jump into the news. So, I have some follow-up news on last week's Stop Killing Games petition. So, you might remember, Devona, Amy Lynn, and I discussed the Stop Killing Games initiative, which is a European movement petitioning EU and UK governments to make it illegal for game publishers to make online-only games permanently unplayable when they stop supporting them. So, won't go too in-depth on our discussion from last week, but I do recommend going back to episode 41 and listening to that too. It's the Big Deltarune episode. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But this follow-up news is quite interesting because it's exactly what you'd expect from an EU lobby group that has come out against the petition. Again, to the surprise of absolutely no one. So, they wrote, "We understand that it can be disappointing for players, but when it does happen, the industry ensures that players are given fair notice of the prospective changes in compliance with local consumer protection laws." So that's why the petition wants to change the law, because if you're following the law, obviously they're, only doing everything currently in compliance with the current version of the law. But if the law changes, anyway, it's a non-argument because the law is trying to be changed. Yes, you're obeying local laws, obviously, but anyway. So then they said, private servers are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data, remove illegal content, and combat unsafe community content would not exist and would leave rights holders liable. This does bring up a good point about liability for an unchecked and unmoderated player base. Anything could happen on private servers. Illegal stuff, players being mean to each other, and then it does, I guess, reflect badly on the game publishers and the developers and the game brand as a whole. And then obviously, as a publisher, you don't want your brand being represented that way over something you're not really controlling. But it does make me wonder if the new law could make it so that these publishers are not liable, legally speaking, at least, for anything that happens on these private servers. I do think private servers are kind of a necessity for games that are killed. There's really no way around it unless you somehow create an entirely offline version of the game. But then that goes up to their next point here, end quote. "In addition, many titles are designed from the ground up to be online only. In effect, these proposals would curtail developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create," end quote. So, if your video game is too expensive to create, then maybe you need to rethink the scope of the game instead of shutting down the game after you've taken our money. Like, yes, games are designed to be online only, but maybe you shouldn't be designing them in this way in the first place. Also, like, and then, of course, there's the fact that, yeah, you've already taken our money and then you're shutting these games down. I think that's the fundamental problem here is it's not just game preservation. Like, that is a part of it, too. Like, I'd love to be able to play an online game forever in some form. Like, you know, when they take Dragon Quest X, for example, and make it offline only, for, like, an offline only version, rather. But at the same time, like, if you're creating an online only game that you have to pay for to get into it, or you've paid for at any point, like, if it's not free to play at any time, like, there should be some way that I should be able to continue playing that content forever. Either that or give me a refund. I know when Google Stadia shut down, they've refunded all their players, which must have been expensive for Google. But like, and no, that doesn't apply to a specific game, but that just applies to their platform. I'm not sure if they refunded people who bought hardware like the Google Stadia controller, but I'm pretty sure they refunded people for like generally everything that they paid for on the platform. So, like, if you're going to take people's money, you better have something to show for it forever, because I know this is a gray area and we're like, this is the wild west of like digital media ownership right now, and compared to how it will be probably a century from now, if digital media is even still a thing. Who knows what the world will look like then, but let's assume that digital media is the future. You need to make your games permanently available to people if they are paying for them. Yeah, if it's free to play and you shut it down, like, that's one thing. Then there's a different argument there for like game preservation in general and like private servers, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's really, really horrible that a company can take your money for any piece of digital content and then eventually not make that digital content available to you through DRM or just like taking down an online game. Like, this applies to movies and first party, not first party, but like single player games, right? Like, if I buy a game, like, or not a game, if I buy a movie on iTunes, right, through Apple TV, and the owner of that content loses the rights to that movie, then that they have the right to revoke your ownership of that digital copy that it makes it completely unwatchable forever. So barring, you know, quote unquote illegal hacking to make that file DRM free, like, that's wrong. Like, I should be able to own that movie forever. And that's the argument really here being made over some games as well. So if you pay for it, it should be yours forever. Even if that's like playing a free to play game, but then you buy some content for it, like a costume. Like, you know, obviously, yeah, as long as the game is active, you probably have access to that costume. But if the game is taken down, you no longer have access to that piece of content. And I know there's been some changes recently. I know California law makes it so you have to kind of like say that, like, yeah, you don't own this game when you buy it, or you don't own this piece of content when you buy it. It's technically, quote unquote, a rental. You know, it's not in perpetuity, but anyway, I'm on my soapbox here. I'm a proponent of physical media. I do buy digital games. Like, obviously, there's a lot of games that aren't available digitally. Some games are available digitally, and they're much cheaper that way. But I do believe in platforms like Good Old Games where you own the game forever. You know, the DRM is not part of the game. A physical copy that doesn't have any updates required on it, where you have all the content on the cartridge forever. And obviously, physical media can degrade too. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I feel much better having a physical game, knowing that nobody can come into my home and take it from me. At least, you know, nobody can come in and take it from me who owns the rights to that game, right? And actually, this kind of ties into the next piece of news here, which is related to the Stop Killing Games initiative. It's tangentially related. Ubisoft supposedly wants to destroy, quote, destroy all copies of their games when they go offline, as per their end-user license agreement. The massive wall of text you have to read before you start playing their games, which I believe you also have to sign on a physical game, too. So further cementing the reasons why players want to be able to preserve their games that they have purchased, right? So if I buy, let's say, Star Wars Outlaws physically, and I sign that end user, I agree to that end user license agreement at the start of the game when I first boot it up. You know, if they stop support, like, are they saying that they want me to destroy the disc after they, like, let's say they lose the rights to Star Wars? And I don't know. It seems so silly to me that and this is what Stop Killing Games is all about, this initiative, this movement. Like, if you want us to destroy a game that we've paid for, if you want us to lose a game that we paid for, you need to refund us for every dollar. I think this would be my middle ground, is like, if this law doesn't change, then like refund us. Like, you don't deserve to have our money if you're not going to give us, forever access to this content. Because I do think access to the content you pay for should be forever. No questions asked, period. Okay, so some happier news. Eurogamer held Pride Week at the end of June. So normally it's Pride Month, but Eurogamer, which is a website that's been around forever, they, talk about video game news and all kinds of stuff. They held their own Pride Week this year, and they posted a bunch of articles about queer gaming. I'm not going to discuss those articles here. We might actually dive into a few of those articles on slower weeks when there's less news to talk about. We've done this with other articles in the past, primarily the Glad Gaming Report. And also, what was the other one? It was the player sexuality article. But anyway, I will include a link down to Pride Week, Eurogamer's Pride Week, down in the show notes. So if you'd like to check it out on your own, I highly recommend it. There's some great stuff there. But it is nice to see some gaming sites still supporting queer games content. Video Games Chronicle and Nintendo Life are also doing this. Though stay the F out of the comments section for your own mental health well-being. Because there's a lot of people that don't agree with it, but at least the website and the people running it are still very queer inclusive. And speaking of queer inclusive gaming sites, Kotaku has been purchased by the owners of Gizmodo. So Polygon got sold off earlier this year, and in my head, I've talked about this before, Polygon and Kotaku are very similar websites in my head. But Kotaku has also been sold off. Unlike Polygon, though, Kotaku has not had any layoffs in the midst of this purchase. However, they did have some last year. Apparently they haven't really had a consistent editor-in-chief since the pandemic, so hopefully this new owner will stabilize things a little bit. There was a lot in the article about this, and it wasn't entirely all like easy to discuss or understand, so I'm just gonna kind of skip over all that and just tell you that Kotaku has been purchased, and so far there hasn't been any major changes to the website. So if you are interested, of course, go check out the link in the show notes. And something that I think is really, really cool, although I'm going to get into why I am a little upset about this news, is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered gets a huge surprise update. So if you own the PS5 and PC remaster of The Last of Us Part 2, and not the PS4 version, the original version of the game, Naughty Dog has released a free update that includes chronological mode. So basically, you can now play through the game in the order that the events actually happened. And I can't really explain how the game plays out in non-chronological order. It's a spoiler. But just know that this is a really cool update that's going to let you play through the game in a different way. It is recommended that you play this mode on a second playthrough. Don't play the chronological mode in your first playthrough. It probably will be less impactful. But if you want to go through the game a second time and you want a different experience, play through chronological mode. I actually recently started a second playthrough of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. It's my second playthrough of Last of Us Part 2. It's my first playthrough of Remastered. And I think I might just restart the game because I think this chronological mode is really, really cool. And like I said, the update is not available to owners of the PS4 version, the original. Something I would like to see, though, is a chronological mode for The Last of Us Part 1, because that game famously has a DLC storyline that you're supposed to play after you finish the game, but actually it takes place halfway through the story when something major happens to Joel. And even in the show, they included this piece of content as one of the episodes where it happens in the chronological order. They didn't go back after episode 9 and say, oh, here's the DLC episode, and you're supposed to experience it in this order. If the show can put it in chronological order, I think the game should as well. And I was disappointed that when they remade part 1, they didn't have it in chronological order. So I hope they can go through and add a chronological mode for part 1, because I think that is the definitive way to play it, and the way you should play it if you've never played it before, is to play Left Behind when it happens in terms of the story, even though it does change up the gameplay a little bit. So, back in November, I did a big Black Friday episode where I talked about all the ways you can save money, especially on Nintendo games. And so, since that episode has released, Nintendo has canceled a bunch of things that make it better for you to save money on video games. They ended the Gold Points, which is basically a loyalty program, earlier this year, and now they're ending Game Vouchers. So, everyone knows it's rare for Nintendo games to go on sale. And in the past, they've had like Player's Choice and Nintendo Selects, which are like cheap versions of games. For this generation, or specifically the Nintendo Switch 1 generation, what they introduced was game vouchers. So basically what these are is you buy a game voucher from Nintendo, and basically it gives you access to select 2 video games from their library of first-party games that will be yours to keep. And basically, the game vouchers themselves are the price of 2 video games with a $10 discount on each. So, I'm not sure. I think the American price, and don't quote me on this, I didn't confirm it, because I've never used them, because again, I buy physical games. But if you want digital games, this is the way to go. So, you pay $100, and you get access to 2 games that would normally cost $60 each. So $120. So basically you're saving $20 on this voucher, with this voucher. And so, but the voucher though, expires after a year. So you've got to use it within the year. But basically you get access to all of Nintendo's first party Switch 1 games. And in some cases, like Tears of the Kingdom, I'm pretty sure that's on the list as well. You'd save an extra $10 because that game is $70 and not $60 US. I think in Canada, vouchers are, I want to say they're $130 or $140, and full price games are $80 each. So you're saving, I think, $25, $30 with the voucher if you buy it. But like I said, if this sounds great to you, vouchers are ending. So the last day to buy a game voucher is going to be January 30th, 2026 next year. If you buy a voucher on that day, the last day to choose your games as part of your voucher will be January 20th. Or I guess January 30th. I wrote down 20th here, but I think it's the 30th, 2027. So basically you have a year. It sounds like a long time. Like first off, 6 months from now when the game vouchers end, that sounds like a long time from now. And then the year after that you have, to make your choice. Also sounds like a long time, but those deadlines do sneak up on you. So take advantage of it while you can, because again, Nintendo games don't really go on sale very often. Especially a lot of the games as part of the voucher program, most of those games do not go on sale. Nintendo famously always picks like a selection of like 5 to 6 games when they have a sale to discount. But this includes all their games. So it's not a huge discount, but it is a discount nonetheless. And do keep in mind that Nintendo Switch 2 games are not part of this offer, so they haven't been adding like Mario Kart World, for example, or the upgrades for Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, and I don't think Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to be added as part of it. So, but yeah, go take advantage of this while it's still around, because I think the Nintendo of the future is not going to have any kind of benefits for Nintendo Switch 2, which is sad, but not surprising given how greedy of a company Nintendo has been, especially in the last 3 months since they've revealed the Nintendo Switch 2. Alright, we're switching back to Sony now. There was a Ghost of Yotei focused PlayStation State of Play this week. Ghost of Yotei, as we know, stars gender-fluid actor Erika Ishii in the main role as the player character. So, I'm not going to go through the whole State of Play, but there are some cool things to note. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. Like it looks almost 100% realistic with the nature and the scenery. The human beings in the game look a little more video gamey, but again, this is like the best video games have ever looked in my opinion. Like the game is so pretty. Like if you just want eye candy, go check out this State of Play because it looks amazing. So anyway, the game is about Atsu on a quest for vengeance in 17th century Japan. It is the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. Although the connection is not really story related so much as it is like a sequel through game design, and aesthetics, because the characters and the time period are all very different. I'm pretty sure it's at least 100 years later. And so the Yotei 6 killed her entire family and Atsu wants revenge. And some of the stuff they revealed is you can press a button to automatically switch between the present and the past with no load times. So when you're playing through her flashbacks, you can choose when to play through them, and you can just press a button immediately to load into it. It reminds me of like the no load times in Spider-Man 2 when you fast travel across the city. You just watch the character swing, and it's a very brief transition, and suddenly you're on a different side of the city. Again, watching this transition, it was like a little wipe on the screen, and then suddenly you were in Atsu's past, which I think is so, so cool. There's also tons of player freedom, more than the previous game, like branching conversation paths that lead you to different parts of the game. You track those with cards that remind you where there are things to do. The more you kill, the more your bounty, like the bounty on Atsu goes up, which increases enemy difficulty. I think a lot of games have a feature like that, but it's kind of cool that like that's part of like one of the main selling points of the game. That's like also built into like the storyline. The game also has tons of quality of life features, and also something I really love is that you have a wolf as a friend that follows you around that can help you fight enemies as well. There were lots of details in the state of play, and I do recommend checking out the whole thing. I will note, though, that even in this trailer, it looks like a very bloody game, so please keep that in mind. If you're squeamish or you don't like blood or intense deadly combat, this might not be a game for you. But if you can stomach that, or that does excite you, I think this is going to be a very exciting game. And of course, it stars a queer actor in the lead role. Even though the character itself, Atsu, is not queer, she is played by a queer actor, Erika Ishii. So this is one game we're going to be talking about at launch. Like, I'm excited. Like, I haven't pre-ordered this game yet. I'm waiting to see when and where I might want to pre-order a physical copy from. It also depends on a lot of factors for where I'm going to pick up this game, like where I'm going to be. Do I work that day? Where do I not work? And I'll probably wait till the weeks leading up to it to pre-order as well. I'm also a little concerned too that I should pre-order it earlier, because what if Sony raises the price of PS5 games across the board, including this one? Maybe they won't. I hope they won't, because right now in Canada it's a $90 game, which is expensive as hell, but is also much cheaper than most new games now. Like, a new Nintendo game at launch is $110, or at least Mario Kart World was. I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is a $100 game, but Donkey Kong Bonanza being $10 more than Ghost of Yotei. If I said Ghost of Tsushima throughout this entire thing, I meant Ghost of Yotei, by the way. For some reason, I can't get Ghost of Yotei in my head as the name of the game. I don't know why, but it excites me a lot more than Ghost of Tsushima did, and that game excited me a lot. Anyway, gonna pre-order this. I don't expect that Sony is going to be gracious enough to send me a code for review, so I can talk about this game early on, but once I've played a few hours of this game, I will definitely be talking about it on the podcast, because I'm so excited for it. Again, a queer actor in a lead role like this, front and center, is a big deal. Especially a game that's like very violent and bloody, and in the last game had a male protagonist, so... there's also a couple more interesting things I just want to note too that they showed off. You can change filters in this game to make it look like different movies. The big one is you can make it black and white to make it look like an Akira Kurosawa film, which is just like filmmaker eye candy to me. It looks so gorgeous. And the game comes out October 2nd, so I'm really looking forward to it. All right, we're down to the last news story. True Avatars, Gayming Mag had their Gaming Awards this week. So every year, Gayming Mag, the gay gaming website, again, when they spell gaming, it's always with G-A-Y-Ming, not gaming like general gaming. But they host a queer video game awards show, which I think is super cool. Last year, obviously, the podcast started just too late to talk about it, but they even do take fan nominations for games in the months leading up to the show, and I did make a few myself. But some of the notable winners from the show this year. Game of the Year went to Dragon Age the Veilguard. The Gaming Magazine Reader's Choice Award went to The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Hard to think that came out last year, actually. It feels like... Anyway, time is strange to me now. LGBTQ plus Voice Actor of the Year Award. Guess who? It's Erika Ishii, who we just talked about in the Ghost of Yotei discussion in the previous story. Presumably, Erika Ishii won for Rook in Dragon Age, The Veilguard, and Hermes in Stray Gods. But they're prolific. They've been in a ton of stuff, so just looking at their history was like really cool. And I think they were also recently in Date Everything, which just came out, I think, last month. Best LGBTQ plus character award went to Rook from Dragon Age the Veilguard, played by Erika Ishii. Best LGBTQ plus indie game award went to Kitsune Tales. Kitsune Tales is a great queer game. It's about a lesbian character on the quest to save her girlfriend, who's been kidnapped, Princess Peach style. I didn't play a ton of this game. It's actually very challenging, and 2D platformers are not really my jam. They have to have a puzzle element or a story element for me to really sink my teeth into it. But I did play through some of this game, and it's amazing. And I think it's supposed to be coming out on the Switch and other consoles sometime this year as well. But go check it out, because it's really, really good and has a great queer story, plus voice acting as well. And finally, LGBTQ plus Geek Entertainment of the Year award went to Arcane Season 2. The show itself, the Gaming Mag Awards, is still available online to watch. I'll link it down in the show notes. Also, Gaming Mag tangentially announced this week that they launched a new nonprofit organization called the Gaming Foundation. Quote, "Our mission is to uplift and empower LGBTQ plus games workers and fans to effect change, celebrate inclusivity, and drive forward representation in games." Their 3 goals are 1, to empower workers, 2, to support fans, and 3, to encourage inclusivity. They have several grants and initiatives designed to back these 3 goals, and I believe they're also taking donations now too. So if that's something that interests you, either as a beneficiary or as a donor, you can definitely go check that now as well. I'll link it down in the show notes. And that is all for the headlines this week, True Avatars. After a short musical interlude, I'll be back on with Tanat Boozayaangool for an interview about his upcoming dating sim, Building Relationships. Hi, True Avatars. Join me to talk about the upcoming game Building Relationships is the creator and developer himself, Tanat Boozayaangool. Tanat is a gay game developer from Bangkok, Thailand, whose pronouns are he, him. Hi, Tanat. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Hi, Zoe. Hello. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. It's 9 a.m. here. What time is it in Thailand right now?
It is 8 p.m. So okay. not too late. Okay, I am on a weird schedule, but it is what it is.
That's fair. Yeah. I looked at your Calendly and I was like, okay, I want to make sure that we have times that line up. I was like, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. for this if I have to. But yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to do that, and neither of us had to lose any sleep.
No, I appreciate it. It's just like if I have meetings, I'll just wake up late and then work late. Like it is, I just kind of work around it.
That's fair. Well, I appreciate it. So just some prelude here. For those who might not know, Building Relationships is a 3D exploration dating sim where you play as a house looking to date. This wacky game has the player control a house, bouncing around and wave dashing through a PS1/N64 style environment, all while you interact with and romance other buildings. It's as silly as it is charming. Plus, you can even go fishing for cars. Did I mention it's also chock full of queer characters and situations? If you're interested, the game is coming this year, but if you simply cannot wait, I couldn't. There's a demo on Steam right now. But also, we're here for an interview with the game's creator.
That's me!
So normally I like to start with a simple icebreaker question about your favorite video game. You're still welcome to answer that, of course, but I simply must ask about Building Relationships. How in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch fuck did you come up with this idea?
All right. First question, I guess, like favorite video games. It's a hard question. I have the list keeps changing, right? And I usually have a go-to of like some of the games that are very impactful to my, like, I guess, a career, wanted me to make video games. When it's like This War of Mine, I would say it's up there. When I played it in high school. It was a long time ago. But it was one of the first games that I played, and I like actually read the story, and I was like, wait a minute, mechanics can make you feel things. And, as like back in time when I was like a high schooler, teenager, it's like, oh, art is like important. Like who knew? Like, yeah. So that's one of them that's up there. Celeste is definitely like, yeah, it's like, it's one of those games where like I played through it and story resonated with me a certain way. I read what the creators had to say about like the story and their like trans coming out journey. It's so layered, so cool. Game design is also amazing. What else? Other favorite game, I guess, like recent, right? The last game I played that kind of really hooked me was like the root trees. The root trees are dead, just because it has that kind of. It feels like you are going through Wikipedia at 3 a.m. and I played it until like 5-6 a.m. Just really like, oh, let me search through this. Oh, let me search through that and search through this. Yeah, it just kind of captured the experience really well. And then the other question, part of it, right, is how I came up with Building Relationships. So the game started as a game jam back in 2015, a very long time ago. It's been 10 years. Back then, I just started university. I didn't really know how to program. I had played like How to Fool Boyfriend, like the absurd dating sims at that time. And I was in a game jam. The theme was construction, destruction, right? And I was thinking like, oh, I can make like a building game, but I don't really know how to program that. I could make like a relationships type game, right? Because it's kind of in category. And I was like, wait a minute, buildings, relationships, and I just clicked. Like it was the worst. It was not that good when I made it because like for one, I didn't consume enough dating sims, enough visual novels, so I can't make something in that genre. So I kind of sat in limbo for the longest time. in 2020, lockdown happened. I was in another game jam. This time I just played A Short Hike, and I really enjoyed exploration as a mechanic. And so the jam was called Unexpected Jam. So I thought this is the perfect time to bring back this game as like, with like the theme concept of building relationships, but as like a short hike, so now it's come a long way, but the best way I kind of describe it is like it's like a short hike but stupid. Yeah.
That's fair. I can't believe A Short Hike was that long ago, if I think about it. Oh my god, time flies.
It's more than 5 years too, right? Because I don't think it came out during the lockdown. I think it came out before lockdown, right? I don't remember. But I remember when I played it, it was not like the newest thing ever. People had talked about it before, but yeah. I can't believe how the Full Boyfriend is... Sorry, How to Full Boyfriend is more than a decade old. It's crazy. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. I was just like, I'm like now going back through like, which apartment was I in when I played that game? But yeah, no, building relationships, from everything I've seen on your website and everything I've kind of pre-researched you a little bit, like it seems very you, like it seems like your voice, and especially playing the game, like it feels like it's very like, yeah, your voice comes through, and I'm so curious what the process has been like making this game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is like, this is the first time I've ever like written for a video game. I've never written anything outside of like emails or like personal journal entries. So it is kind of like, but the voice does kind of come through, right? Because it's just me being me. But in the way it's like, okay, how do I frame this in a way that in a video game it makes sense, right? It's like meeting me in person is very different from like meeting me as a friend is also very different, right? It's just like, okay, how do I piece all these things together? But development has been like, it's been a long story. It's, the concept started 10 years ago. The jam started 5 years ago. And basically in 2023, like around October, November time, I was like, let me put the jam version on Steam, and that's it. I'm not going to do any more work. I'm just going to take this jam version, put it on Steam so that I have like a shipped game on my portfolio. I was working in tech at the time, doing games part-time, and I wanted to like kind of switch career path basically because tech is not fun. So I was trying to make that switch. And as like a mid-level type position or like senior position, you have to have shipped games. If you do not, it's very hard to stand out because at that time, like games layoffs were happening. So games people were trying to find new jobs as well. And most of them will have a shipped title and I don't. So I was like, okay, building relationships. I made this jam. Let me turn it into a game. And I looked at the game and was like, I can do a little bit better here. I can change this. I can change that. So it started as like a part-time project. I was like, let me throw this up to here. No one really cared. And then like I posted a TikTok and then people were like, hey, this is something. It was just kind of a series of things that happened. And that like I submitted the game to Data Devs, which is like a showcase for games that have like a Summer Games Fest section. Fully did not know the impact, the like scale of the production, everything. And I got in and I was like, oh, I'm in, and I did not respond to the email. And they're like, hey, are you in? They emailed me like, why are you who are you to ghost us? I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. But yeah, since then it's kind of been crazy. It's just like, oh, turns out like I have like, I'm like, is this something that people actually want to play? And it's just not like, it's more than just like, haha, funny, Tanat's being funny. So yeah, it's been a while, like kind of making a transition. It's like, oh, I have capability to be creative, like, and now it's like kind of transition. Like I quit my job to work on the game full time, mainly because the job I was in was pretty bad, it's pretty toxic, and so this game, to me, it's like a break from work. Just because I cannot, like the corporate environment is a little too much for me. And so like the burnout was real there. And like, it kind of was lucky that I had something, in corporate environment when nothing was under my control. I switched immediately to something that was entirely in my control, had some momentum beneath it. And I had made lots of peer connections. And yeah, so it was like a lucky timing thing. I started working on this full time and now I'm working with a composer to bring to life lots of different aspects of the game. How's development going? It's my friends and family ask that all the time, and I'm just like, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, you have to. I'm not a game developer, but I have to explain. I have to assume, like, when I'm editing videos, which is what I do for a living. Someone's like, "How's it going?" And it's like, "Well, I laid out my audio track today. Like, I don't know how to tell you like what I do. Like, it's too technical. You're not going to find that interesting."
No, absolutely. I think there's like times when like I think the clearest like comparison is like there's times when you know exactly what you need to edit, right? Like if someone's like, oh, edit this YouTube video in like a very YouTuber style, then it's very like set in stone, like this is exactly what I want. This is very clear, the easy things you can do. But sometimes it's just like I don't know what I'm asking for, and please edit this for me in a way that and then you have to get the guest like, okay, do you want this reference? And it keeps coming back like, this is not what we want. And the notes you're getting are not very clear. And you just have to spend a lot of time trying to like do guesswork. Yeah, that's like, it's like the game development's kind of like that for me. The main thing is just like, it depends on what I'm working on. But right now it's like a lot of, things are a little ambiguous and trying to figure out like, okay, I want to explore new mechanics, but the more new and unique they are, the harder they are to explain, right? So when the mechanics are hard to explain, it's also hard to kind of deliver the narrative, right? So I need to figure out the balance of like, okay, how do I make it easier to understand so people can spend the time to understand the narrative a little better. And working particularly with my composer right now, because it's like a musical related like moment, and there's not a lot of references for it. Because a lot of time you kind of like, oh, let me do it like this game, but do this differently. But now trying to figure out like what exactly should this be. And it's just been a very long process, and it's one of those things where like if I had a team of people I'm working with, I could not take this risk of just like, let's find something, do something that will only happen in this part of the game. Because like in like a more responsible team setting, you should work on things that are like reusable somewhere else. And it's like a lot of dates. I want the dates to feel unique in the game. There's not a lot of dates, but I want each thing to kind of have its impact. So long answer of like being like working in a small team and trying to like do like creative thing and leading yourself is hard. One thing is like I've had to learn is like dealing with anxiety in a very different way, right? Compared to my previous anxieties are related to being laid off, and now it's just like, how am I going to execute this? And the scale of it is so different, right? It's just like, one of it's like, I have to move countries. I have to figure out how's everything, and just like job security and everything. I have to figure all that out. And this one just like, the game might not be that good for this part. And it just kind of took a lot to understand like, my body reacts in a very similar way, but even if the scale is different, I still should acknowledge it. I shouldn't, dismiss this feeling entirely. But yeah, doing creative stuff on your own, kind of hard.
Yeah, the discipline part is the hardest thing for me. Is like, I have like 5 hours ahead of me. Okay, we need to sit down and do this work.
Yeah, I'm sure hosting podcast, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of like things you have to wrangle, things that pop up as you go. And I'm sure, a lot of the viewers can like kind of relate to like not viewers, no one's viewing, listeners can probably relate to like the overwhelmingness of it all. Sometimes it's just like, it just gets to you sometimes that, you learn to kind of notice symptoms and deal with it.
Yeah. No, podcast is probably much more manageable than game development. I don't know much about game development, but balancing, because it's the podcast itself is like a part-time, like voluntary, like I'm just doing it in my free time. And so when I started it, I was like, oh, I want to do something queer video game related. And normally if I'd had time and I was like not video editing at work as much, it would have been a YouTube channel. But I was like, oh, audio editing is faster and easier, and I can just kind of like turn on a mic and talk, and it can just be me. It hasn't been. Very rarely is it just me, but anyway, all that is to say is that like I think game development is a lot harder than the podcast, but I appreciate that. So you mentioned being laid off, and you mentioned corporate work. I'm curious, like both indie and corporate wise, like what's the game development scene like in Bangkok? It sounds very similar if there's like threats of layoffs and stuff like that. So
Gotcha. When I was in corporate, I was working in London actually. So I went to undergrad in the US. In the US, you have to do like a lottery to be able to work in the US. I get a working visa. So I didn't get the lottery, so I ended up transferring to the UK. So in corporate, it was in tech, so entirely different from games. So I wasn't really doing anything games related. And I think the corporate world is similar across all different types of corporation, of just like, sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not. And depending on the luck of the draw, sometimes I think for me, it was like hard dealing with like the tone shift, the like toxicity of it all. But game development in Thailand right now, I'm like, I guess like not solo dev, right? Because I'm working with the composer, and we work together quite a bit. Small teams, the best to put it, but I do work alone most of the time. So I haven't worked with people in Thailand because I moved here when I quit my job, had to come home. But Thailand's nice. There's a developing. Well, I guess it's not developing. It's like there are people here who are really talented. I've been to universities. I've seen what people can do. Like especially art, there's lots of very like amazing artists here. A lot of like take a lot of influence from like Japan, like very anime style. But also some doing their own thing. The development scene is there's lots of different people. There's a certain amount of like expats also making games here, because making games is hard. It's hard partly because it's hard, but partly because you don't make money until you sell the game. So in the meantime of like not having income, it's just like burn rate, right? It's like if you go to Thailand, things are cheaper here compared to just like the West, compared to like Australia, for example. And you kind of survive a little bit longer. So some people are doing that on like a different work visa and all that. But yeah, also game scene here. I'm so all over the place. What's the game scene like here? The indie scene like here is a little bit different from the West, right? Because there is not a lot of options for, let's say you graduate university. There's not a lot of options to go to, for example, for like if you want to work in like a AAA company to like make a game. There's lots of outsourcing studios here, but the outsourcing studios, they kind of operate stealth mode, right? So if you're not in the industry, you wouldn't know who they are. But they do exist here, like across different countries in Southeast Asia. But yeah, not as many like studios making games in the scale of like Ubisoft, Blizzard, and all that. So a lot of people end up going to like indie studios, and indie studios tend to look a little bit bigger here, like 30 people studios with like 2 teams of 15. Is kind of like that's probably the biggest, right? But that is the size it goes up towards. So yeah, the indie scene here is different. There's a lot, like for me coming back, it's like I lived in the US and UK for like 10 years, and coming back, it's like my Thai is very rusty, and just trying to like connect with introverts in a language I haven't used in so long. And there are moments where like I said something that I don't think made sense, and people were just like, what is he talking about? And are too afraid to ask me what I said. The introvert thing is like, I guess I'll smile and nod. This person is saying something I don't understand, So it's taken a little bit to kind of like make friends and all that. But there's lots of cool people here, lots of different types of games here as well.
Well, speaking of interacting with other people, I'm going to jump ahead to another question, and then we'll come back to the other ones in the list I sent you. But like underneath all the silliness and the puns, building relationships is a microcosm of the queer dating world. And just like the queer like community in general, right? So like in the demo alone, I found bisexuals, pansexuals, Achillean characters, sapphic characters, polycules, open relationships. Like you kind of hit a lot of the major beats in the demo alone, which I loved. And all across the spectrum of genders too. I thought that was really cool. I found he, she, they. Hopefully this question isn't too personal, but how have your identity and experiences influenced the game itself?
Spoilers alert, for the viewers behind it, not you listeners behind the scene, like Zoe just sent me a bunch of the questions that are being asked today. So I did see this question earlier and was like, did I do all this? did I write all these characters? It's one of those things that's like, I think just like I'm so gay that the characters I write are just gay and across the spectrum, right? But yeah, I think for me, it's just like, okay, the main question I ask, like, does it make sense for buildings to be like gendered? But in a way that's like, I guess they have some human persona in them, right? In the ways that like you talk to Millie, it evokes a certain thought, certain like character in your brain. The name is also a little gendered, right? But in a way that's like, they don't have genitals, the buildings don't have genitals. The buildings, like as a society, if we imagine them as a society, does it make sense for buildings to be like discriminated based off of like gender? Like it will be discriminated on looks more. You're more likely to be categorized based on looks as if in a society of building. So that's kind of like where I kind of like walk back. Like one of the first things like thoughts of just like, if it's like a dating sim, right? The question to ask, like, is there sex in the game? And then immediately the one thing I knew was that it shouldn't be straight sex if it was going to be in. So I think like my instincts are just very like gay, very like, I'm done with heteronormative stuff. Let's put in something fun. And yeah, I think a lot of those things are, I guess like, when you write stuff, it's people that you interact with, right? The people that are in your lives that kind of make it into the game. Like a lot of those like things, like a lot of the people, like characters I write, they're not always conscious choices that I was like, oh, I should base this on this. There was one that is not in the demo, but it's like after you are on a picnic date, right? There's a second half to that picnic date. That encounter is entirely based off an encounter I had on Grindr. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to kind of read intention in chat. And then someone was saying something and I was like, haha, let me joke along with you in this, like, this thing you're kind of saying. And then as I was joking about it, the reply they sent me was, that's hot. And I was like, uh-oh, what have I started? And so that is like a moment in the game where it's like, there's a tone shift that happens in like, kind of like a kinky way, which is also feels like a very queer thing. Just like having queer friends talking about queer things. It's like you enjoy intimacy, I guess not in a different way, but in like a lot of queer intimacy is kind of related to play, related to kink and all that. Not always, but in my experience. But yeah, does that answer the question? I feel like I have a tendency to yap. So
no, this is great. I mean, that's why you're here.
That's why I'm invited to pod. But is there anything about like that, like you want to dig a little bit deeper in, or you can move on?
Well, actually, so you said if there's going to be sex in this game, not straight sex. So I actually do have another question here. This again, jumping forward a little bit, but your handle on Blue Sky is literally house fucking game. So I'm curious, is there going to be some form of sex scene in the game? We're both, I know people can't see, but we're giggling our asses off here.
So if ESRB is listening, the answer is no. If you're going to rate the game mature, answer is no. But okay, let me talk about the handle first. So when I was like starting working this game, I mentioned like having corporate route, working in corporate and now doing something entirely different. I was like, time to be a little bit unserious, time to let a little bit loose. Like I've been too serious all my life and it's given me nothing. It's given me something, but it's hurt me a little bit, right? So part of me is like the joy of like doing something weird, doing absurd, doing something funny. So I bought the website handle for House Fucking Game because I hadn't decided back then yet, but I was like, this is a funny URL. And with Blue Sky, you can add any URL you own as your handle. So I was like, this is funny, let me do it. And now with Blue Sky, you cannot, if you switch back to a different URL, it doesn't save like your links. It doesn't, if anyone copies any links to, which I do every now and then, like to my Blue Sky post, you cannot find me. All the links will be broken if I switch my name back. So I've committed to the bit, and it's like a tattoo. It will be there forever until Blue Sky's dead, which I don't think it will be. But yeah, will there be sex in the game? Yeah, yes. Well, it's I think about like, okay, what's like intimate for a house? What's something that is definitely not just like insertion of some kind, of just like, oh, here's this thing that looks like a shaft, here's this thing that looks like an opening. I think that's the first thought. So I was like, okay, let me do something more to that. And it kind of relates to something that is very like people do all the time. So yes, there is, but I think in a way that's like I hope to like I have to kind of play with like, okay, sex isn't for everyone, right? Like I need to make sure the writing, like there's a route to make it not sexy, and like route to kind of exit out of this. There's route that like if you want to go for it, the game will go for it, and will like represent kink in a way that shouldn't feel like it's like fetishized for like a male gaze. It's something that feels like real to me. Which I think it's real. It feels real. I feel like when people play the game, they can guess, like they can guess. They'll know a little bit too much about me because I write for personal experiences. But I'll leave that net like when the game is out, you'll get to see it for yourselves. But yeah, yes, it is a scene that pretty much relates to kink, pretty much relates to sex, but in a way that hopefully we'll see with the ratings how it pans out. If I get a mature rating, then yes, for sure. If I don't, then like suggestive content. But I don't know. I'll figure it out. There's a very likely chance I will get flagged as explicit, but I will also have to, before the game is out, it's like, okay, is it morally right that if like this is explicit, is it that explicit? I did get my friend to describe the scene as the most not safe for work, but safe for work thing he's ever experienced. So we'll see.
That's really wholesome.
There is jazz involved. That's something I can foreshadow. I did scat for it with my mouth. I'm like scat, but not that kind. Vocally, okay. Well, not at you know what I mean. I just like we'll figure. I'm making a bigger hole for myself. But all right, next question, please.
No, that's really wholesome, actually. Despite all the giggliness of it, I really like that. I like the approach to like what is sex without like, because like houses, they're not gonna penetrate, right? And I say this too, like my podcast too. When you're talking about explicit content, when I was originally publishing the podcast, I just went through Spotify because they had like a for creators app that you could upload through, and I was like, I kind of got tired of the limited functionality, so I moved over to a different site. And as soon as I did, all the podcast titles that had gay, LGBTQ+, and queer were all flagged and removed. And they said you could only get it back if you flag all your podcasts as explicit. So I don't know if it's going to be the same for the video game world, but I know for my podcast, as soon as anything queer, even if it wasn't going to be. So then I'm just like, what, if we're going to be explicit anyway, I might as well swear. We might as well talk about sex. I mean, also the opinion that like young people should be able to hear things like swearing and sex, because if they're allowed to see bloody violence and stuff like Deadpool, even though that stuff is like R-rated, like kids watch it anyway. And if kids are seeing violence but not sex, and they think sex is bad and violence isn't, anyway, I have a whole soapbox I could get onto about that. But anyway, just to say that like I love this for your video game. I think that's surprisingly wholesome, and I hope everyone gets to play it, not just adults.
No, thank you so much. There is something I want to talk a bit more on that. Is that like as a queer like gay child, closeted gay child growing up, there's not a lot of like gay media in terms of video games to kind of latch onto. Like Sims 4 wasn't out yet, so like you couldn't be gay yet. You needed a mod to be gay. So, or maybe then you could kiss in Sims 2. I don't remember. I didn't have money for Sims, but I like a lot of like there's not a lot of queer content, and so it's very easy if you're kind of into video games, kind of discover like Reddit posts about BL visual novels, BL like romance. But it's also kind of hard to find something that is like wholesome and meant for teenagers, and it's very easy to find something that is very erotic. That that in my experience, like I play like Dramatical Murder. I should not have played Dramatical Murder at the age I played Dramatical Murder at, because it's very, there's moments that's wholesome, immediately tone shift explicit into like, okay, we're gonna have hardcore anal sex. And there's like a character who's kind of, I think like a robot or something, and like are dying, and the more you like, with every touch, like his skin is kind of disappearing faster. And like the last thing he wants, like, I want to have sex with you because that's that's what I want. And it's just like kind of wild that like for me and my child, it's just building this concept of like, oh, so like gay romance is kind of built around like anal sex. Like that's just like the concept, like preconception I had, because it's not only this game, right? Every other like BL yaoi like eroge game, which is the things are easier to search for, ironically. Everything is around like playing around like semen, around like anal sex in a way that's like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's, if it gets kinky, there's no aftercare, there is no asking before it happens, there is no like checking in as it happens. So it's like a shocking experience going through it, and it's one that, it's made for an audience. And when you stumble into it from outside, you just don't know how to feel, right? And so that's one thing that's like, I hope to be able to get right in the game, is to like, okay, people are gonna stumble into this. How do I handle all this? Like Date Everything has a pretty good like hand on it. Like there's like their characters that get a little bit kinky, but they have like conversations baked in around the consent and everything. And yeah, it's like making sure like if you say no, you don't get like, oh, I'm missing out. You're missing achievement or something. If she knows it is like stuff like that is something that is molded by my experience around like explicit markers and everything, and something that I hope will be better for future players of the game.
That's really awesome and really wholesome, because you had me thinking about like the first time I started filtering through the LGBTQ plus tag on Steam, and like half of it is like porn by like whoever, corporations, people who are not queer, that's just like, here's this explicit stuff that's like for the male gaze almost, right? And not in every case, obviously. There's some stuff that's not just for the male gaze, but yeah.
A lot of what I played was gay content for the female gaze. And that was that is like I think in Thailand also, like there is BL content that is like BL series that's for like women to be like, ooh, like that's a thing with like books, or you can see from the book cover how long the characters' fingers are. Usually you can, like, it's very anime art style, and there are characters drawn a certain way that's like for like shipping, and like there's a whole history to that of just like in Japanese BL, there's terms like top and bottom, but in a way that's like not exactly top and bottom. It feels very active and passive, and it kind of creates this archetype that kind of like, that's how I don't know, that's the archetype for like BL for longest time. But yeah, it a lot of like, not all of it is queer content for queer people. Some of it was queer content for that women that likes queer content, which is, go you help our industry. but also there should be a gamut, and now there is more of a gamut than there was before.
Yeah, and there'll be one more game there to break through the sea of straight queer content for straight people. I don't know how to describe it, because sometimes it doesn't even feel like it was made by a queer person.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll see where the game lands.
So let's jump back to a few of the earlier questions. When I first saw a trailer, I had a lot of questions about the premise of buildings and sentient beings. Like, why buildings? You could have gone with like people or animals or food.
Yeah, why buildings? I'll be very honest. When I made the game, I think there's like a dating sim, the visual novel version, barely visual novel, just like very bare bones IF version that made in 4 hours. And I was like, okay, let's bring that into the real world. Let's bring that. It's like a 3D game, like a short hike type game. And I just found buildings assets online. So all these assets most of them started as free assets. So I use mostly free assets on online. And I kind of discovered like, wow, you can get the characters to like move like in a cute way, and like speaking a little more technically, it's like squash and stretch, right? You just kind of boom, 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 just bounce around, and there's already so much life, and they're all like free assets, and there's some level of creativity of just like something that really speaks to me is just like do something kind of not exactly half-assed, but in a way that's like, haha, this is bad but good. And that's how I approach a lot of the game. Just like, okay, which part is bad but good? Which part is like a polished experience? But yeah, I think the choice to use buildings is very much like, okay, what's I can't really animate, and so I don't want to deal with humans. Cut buildings is not like. If I guess you could animate like the doors and all that, I just did not think about that. I was like, what's the easiest way to animate? Everything bounces in the same way. And yeah, I like the why buildings, like partly because of the concept 10 years ago, and partly because I found free assets, they work. The reason fish are cars is because there's also an asset pack for cars. And I was like, okay, put it in. And I was like, can I justify this in lore? And I was like, I guess houses have cars. Done. Even though none of the houses like have like a garage door in the game. Like it's just the houses are like a medieval fantasy type houses. But no one's called me out on it yet. But it's also the asset pack is made for like a Dutch guy. That's why there's a windmill in the game. He was a Dutch guy, and I was like, Kent is kind of striking enough from all these other houses. They look like a different, like someone interesting, or a structure that's interesting. I think there's certain things that you plan and you create and you like formulate, and some things you just throw in there, and it's like, haha, this is funny. Let me find a through line for all these choices I've made. And yeah, I think like. I feel like people are in on a joke, and so it kind of works for the game that way. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's in the title. Like, as soon as you figure out you're like building relationships, what kind of relationships am I building? Oh, buildings in relationships. And I think that's really clever. And not only is the movement, like if the movement feels really good, like you've done a really good job. Like I literally just spent like half an hour before doing anything, just like bouncing around. And then after I played through most of the demo, I realized it was over, but like it hadn't like ended yet. And so I was bouncing around, and then I found out that like I found the other little hidden areas where you can like upgrade the bouncing and the jumping and like the wave dashing. And I was like, oh, this is just like, if this was like a big open, like if I was playing Breath of the Wild, but I had, instead of Link, I had this house and I could just bounce around and do nothing but that, I would do that for hours because it's so much fun. But not only is the wave dashing super fun, but like the buildings are really cute. Like it's just like there's something adorable about them, and I want one as a pet now. So like, how did you manage to make them so cute?
I'll be honest, I don't know. Like, I think sometimes people like, oh, I'm such a genius. I knew this because I did this in certain ways. But sometimes you truly just, you fuck around and you find out. And for me, it's like people, it might have feel some of the game. It might feel like a calculated decision, but it truly is just like what's something I can do, what's easy. And I think back to like I took like an animation class, and it's just like what's a principle of animation? It's like okay, squash and stretch, and I was like, what's an easy thing to do? Bounce around in a way that's like every object, right? Every building has like a flat bottom. So I was like, okay, this animation will work for anything. And so I just kind of put, bounce left, bounce right, bounce left, bounce right. And it just kind of worked. Like I created this like video like the other day when I replaced all the buildings with humans. Just because there's like a corner of the internet that do not like dating sims that are not about are about inanimate object, because to them it doesn't feel like a sincere take on a genre. Which, to be fair, like there's been other games like before me, between like Hot Up a Boyfriend and Building Relationships. It's like people who want to explore this space who've never played the space before. So and dating sims, like some developers like to push shit on dating sims. I'm not curious to do that, but it's just like, it's kind of, there's a long story here, but there's a tweet that about the game, and it kind of showed a very specific part of the game, right? So it's like, oh, here's a dating sim, but everything's houses. Not a lot of like the movement, not a lot of the fishing. So it looked like it's just a dating sim, but with buildings. So I understand the criticism, right? It's like, I understand the like reaction, but I also kind of got annoyed because people were making up stories of just like, I went to Discord server, asked them devs to add women, and they kicked me out. And I was like, bro, at least if you commit to the bit, join the server, gather your screenshots, you know? And I was like, I'm being horror farmed. So I just like replace all the characters with humans. And the point of the story is that when I replace everything with sprites, they're very like poorly drawn sprites. It just worked because like like the bouncing and the character fully does not look correct, but it's funny. During the dialogue, the characters just like bouncing left and right, and it's just so cute. I truly cannot explain how it is just. The basics of animation, it's so true. Like I talked to like my like artist friend and she was like, what's the shape language of these buildings? I was like, shape language? A lot of it is like me stumbling, like, oh, the tent, like I think I kind of has like an attitude that matches the sharp edges of the tent, and that was not something I consciously decided on. It's just something that maybe I subconsciously did it, but like it just kind of, I don't know. A lot of these things, you just do what feels right, and then act like a genius afterwards. So if I talk about this elsewhere, I'll be like, wow, I knew it. Ever since I was a child, I looked at like a toy. Like go set, and I like had to whatever. Some bullshit answer. Really, like. You just do stuff that feels nice to you, I feel, and it's just like that in itself is like it does. You don't need like a revelation, I feel, but some of the smallest stuff turns out to be some of the most like precious things, and that's one of the few things I kept like, hey, maybe something special about this game is the way the house moves and the way the house, like the movement in the game. Like that's the first thing I did when I made the Jam version in 2020. It's like, I don't know if the game is going to be fun, but the movement's going to be fun. And so that was like, I'm glad that like you really enjoyed spinning around. Here's this little secret. It's like the wave dash. If you wave dash multiple times against the wall, like the realistic boundary, you can break through it. And and I fully did. I was like, I'll let people break through this. And so there are like little secrets here and there. It's like an unfinished area, right? But there are like, you could get like an infinite jumps from there. But yeah. It's just one of those like, yeah, let me put something fun.
Well, if it helps, my roommate came by while I was playing it on my Steam Deck, and she only watched 30 seconds of it, but I was like, look, you're a house and you're bouncing, and she heard the sound effect, and like the sound effect helps for sure, I think a lot, at least with the bouncing, but she thought it was adorable, so you're doing something right.
Thank you so much.
Speaking of when I was playing on Steam, when I was done the demo, and the menu had no quit button. And there was a clever message from you breaking the fourth wall, just letting me know that like you didn't include one. It was such a small thing, and I was like you can't even be mad at that. You're just like, okay, I'll just go manually quit through the like app or whatever, because it was so funny. And there's also dialogue from the characters, especially like it all seemed very demo specific, where you're like, hey, this is a demo, like this game isn't like done. Especially like you mentioned the wall, the boundary. I never broke through the boundary. I'm too obedient. Whenever I hit it, there was a message that came and said like, you can't go here. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I won't do that again. But I'm curious, will the full game, because obviously the full game won't be a demo, was the full game going to have cute fourth wall breaking stuff like that too?
Yeah, I think like a lot of the stuff that is a little too, like there's certain things that's like, it's cute for a demo, but I think like, I think meta stuff, like some people are into it, some people get tired of it, right? So if there is one, it has to be earned. I haven't planned any of it in there yet. All the like, this is not in a demo yet, it's because I haven't implemented it. And I was like, this is easy, like I'm going to put this here. The quit button is a little bit different because like when you program, like, the quit line is literally one line. You show one line, or write one line of code, and you're done. So it kind of is a callback to I never bothered looking up how to quit when I did some of the game jams in the past, and so I just put something funny in there like haha, you can't quit, whatever. And so when I brought it the Steam demo up, I was like, I may put the same thing, but here's the funny thing is that like the demo is localized, and I sent those lines to localization, and I forgot to implement this button as a line, and so the quit button works in every other language. In English, you can't quit. And it's like the text says, sorry, I forgot to implement this button, and it quite literally is more work for me to put that text on screen rather than just typing the quit message, because I have to also check what language you're running, right? So it is like a joke to like, do I think it's funny? I don't think it's that funny. I think it's a little bit tired. But it is small enough. It's out of the way enough. There's someone on Steam that left a review that was like, everything is funny except for this joke. This joke is not funny. Let me quit the game. And I was like, you are valid. And also, I think that like if I do porting later on, right? I think the quit button has to quit as like, I don't know if it's true, but I would imagine that like certain platforms, like the quit button should actually quit, like there are certification requirements of just like to ship a game on a certain platform, it has to reach a certain bar of quality. And I don't know if it's true because I haven't gone through the process yet, but I think it's reasonable to expect that you should be able to quit a video game. And so a lot of jokes will like, I don't know if it really is like placeholder joke, just like don't come for me because I didn't finish this, but yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, not being able to quit, I was like, oh, I can't quit. I was like, so I exited out. I was like too lazy to like open the other Steam menu to quit that I played the game for another 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. Yeah, my cousin played the game. She doesn't really use the computer. Just kind of turn off the entire computer because she couldn't quit. So,
feel that.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, I have one more question for you. You're talking about release. Do you have any plans to bring your your game to other neighborhoods? Platforms?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bad, poorly written joke.
No, you have to own up to it. That's what I do for all my jokes. It's just, and someone will find it funny, and if it's not funny, then it's endearing, which is a worse insult than not funny. Well, your jokes are so endearing, so cute. So, okay, question was about porting, right? Yeah. So I think from the very start, the Switch, it feels like a game that works on the Switch, will match the vibes of the Switch. But right now, I don't have any plans. I don't have anything to announce. But I do want to bring it to console, mainly because I want that experience of porting. I don't know where the game is going to take me. The initial plan was like, games like sales are very hard to predict. Marketing is very difficult, right? Sometimes a game is good and just doesn't sell. It is how it is. So I wanted that experience to port, just because if I don't have money to make video games, I can maybe I used to be a programmer, right? I can help people port games, and hopefully it's like, ooh, I experience. So yeah, that was I really want on other consoles. So maybe Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, but don't know yet. Fun fact though, in Thailand, you can't get development consoles sent to you in Thailand because of the import laws. It's weird. Same with Indonesia. You just can't get dev kits sent in because at import, they will be like, what is this? Merch, you have to have codes for if you're importing a item for sale, right? And it's not an item for sale. So if it gets checked at the border, then it gets flagged. And so instead you have to fly to somewhere they have dev kits and then fly back with the dev kits. So it's a little bit of a hassle, but I want to for sure. But right now it's it will be after launch, and launch is this year. And this year for sure, because I don't want the game to take more. All these many games I mentioned at the start of the call, it's like, okay, if it's taking too much time, just like do something simple, just to preserve the sanity. Just want it out there. But this, I don't have console announcements. I do intend to, but don't know yet.
Well, I'm looking forward to the release on whatever platform it's on. Like I said, I played it on Steam Deck, so like handheld, like especially all those like not only just the old N64 and PS1 games, but all those ones that are like kind of like in that style. All those feel so good on a handheld, and I played it on Steam Deck, and I wouldn't know that like I don't know if you added any code to make sure it ran on Steam Deck, but it ran perfectly there. If that helps to know. So.
Oh yeah. I also have a Steam Deck, and the only code I added, just like because Steam Deck is 16:10, right? Making sure it's at the first, when I first started it, like things were clipped, just because it was assuming 16:9 in a weird way instead of like 16:9 in a way that doesn't clip. Not that relevant, but
I've been there. I love
it. Oh yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I also have a Steam Deck, and I love it.
Me too.
It's perfect, like crow county on the Steam Deck kind of just works well, like all the like PS1 type games. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to pick your brain longer, but I actually have to go to work. It's 9 a.m. here. It's almost 10 a.m. here. I'm sure you're almost like ready for bed over there, but I do really, really appreciate you joining me for this interview. I'm sorry it took so long to get it scheduled and for us to sit down, but your insight was so amazing, and I'm really, really excited for building relationships.
No problem. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you spent. The questions I really appreciate all the questions. It's kind of, I love yapping. I will nonstop yap if I could. It's bad. I love it. Can you tell I work alone? Most of the days I Discord message my composer every now and then, but it's giving like that aunt or like grandmother who's talking to grandchildren. That's me now.
I said as a kid I would never be that, and there we are. Oh,
here we are. All I have are plushies, like a little Mungus. No, you have to go to work. I can't stop. I'm gonna stop talking, but thank you so much.
All right. Well, Building Relationships is coming to PC this year. Look out for it, and it'll be Steam Deck playable. So look out for that too.
Bye.
Thanks, True Avatars, for joining me for another episode of your Queer Video Game Podcast. If you've made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you taking the time to support queer-made content. If you want to support the show, it would be really great if you could leave a rating, review, or comment on your preferred podcast platform. I welcome you to check out the website trueavatarspodcast.com, all one word. That's trueavatarspodcast.com. You can also find the show on Blue Sky, Threads, and YouTube under the handle @trueavatars, all one word, and on Instagram under trueavatars. Importantly, if you or anyone you know is queer and involved with video games in some way, please don't be shy. I would love to hear from more queer voices in video games. Your voice is unique and valid and worth sharing with the world. And if you don't want to be on the show or know anyone who's interested, but you know about a cool queer video game or a games industry story that's queer related, please let me know. The show's official email is trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. That's trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. You can also feel free to reach out via the website or the aforementioned social media pages. Things are tough out there, and queer people need to stick together when we can. Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.